Okay, so there's a few phrases that you're gonna need with the say word game. One of those phrases is word. So when should you say word? In the box game, you're making an argument that you know a word, and there is a valid word that has the morpheme from the card that you drew and one or more morphemes from the board. So when you pick up two cards, what you're saying is, I know a word that has these two morphemes in it. So instead of saying, hey, I have a word that has these two morphemes in it, we're just gonna say word. The next instance is when you're playing stack and steal and you have your cards in your hand and you decide you're gonna start a group face up and say word, which is short for I know a word that has these two morphemes in it. And that's when you'll say word. So now, when should you say word? You should say word in the knockout game when you draw a card and place it down. Say word starts the hand. The other time that players say word in the game is gonna be as a challenge. So if another player says, in the box game, for example, hey, I know a word that has these two morphemes in it, or when they say word, if you want to hear the word that they may be thinking, or in case they may be bluffing, you're gonna say word. Now that player has to then say a word that they believe has these morphemes in common. Now it could be 3 or more depending on if there are vowels included. So now, when should you say that's my word? In the knockout game, a player will say that's my word once they have eliminated all the other players. If they're the last person standing, they pick up the card and say that's my word. The other time is when you're playing stack and steal and you add to an opponent's group. If an opponent had a group of morphemes down and you decided, hey, I am gonna add to that group because I think I know a word that has these two morphemes and the card that I'm gonna add to it, I'm gonna say, that's my word, and take that from my opponent. The only time that players are gonna say, that's your word, is when they decide they wanna forfeit in a game of knockout. You're gonna say, that's your word, and allow the player to go ahead and have that card. Now, when would you say that's not a word? In any of the games, you'll say that's not a word in order to challenge it. Either in knockout, which means, hey, that's not a word that has that morpheme. In box, to say, hey, that's not a word that has those 2 or more morphemes in them. And the same would go for stack and steal. Last but not least, the last phrase you need to know is gonna be, that's the last word. And that's said in a game of stack and steal when you make your last morphological connection. So those are the key phrases inside of the say word game. Thanks for watching. Enjoy playing the game. For full rules and gameplay variations, please check out the website and message us if you have any questions.